Welcome, everyone, to the Salem News Sports Writers Podcast. We have two of the three sports writers here with us. Phil Stacey will be joining us in just a moment, we believe. Matt Williams is here, and Nick Giannino. Let's get right to it. Nick, you have now left the Salem News to go to sister paper, the Gloucester Times, as their new sports editor. Nick Kukuru left last end of the summer, I guess, in August of 2023. And you guys have been filling that role a bit. But congratulations to you. And how are things up in the Cape Ann area?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to fill in over there, and now I'm taking Nick Kukuru's spot on the podcast here too, I guess, with the Cape Ann talk. But so far the transition's been good. Obviously we've worked together with Nick Kukuru in the past for many years, and a lot of crossover stuff there. So we'll be sharing stories still, and you'll see my byline in both papers. Obviously more so now in the Gloucester Times, running the sports section, but you'll still see it every so often with game coverage and whatnot in the Salem News. But yeah, in terms of what's going on over here, we've gotten off to a pretty strong start in the winter season over in the Cape Ann. I've gotten to take in some basketball games already, some hockey games. I guess we can start there with the hockey. Gloucester boys hockey's off to a 6-2 start. I got to see them have a good win against Newburyport, and they fell down 2-0 and came back to win that one. I think they just coming off a loss to Masconomet that Phil actually went and covered, and they outshot Masco by 20 shots in that one, came up short by 1 goal. So still a strong start for them, 6-2. Like I said, they had one player, Brett Cunningham, reach 100 career points earlier this year, and it looks like Colby Jewell is about to join him. He's up to 98 career points, I believe it is. Phil Stacey could chime in with this too. He's still big on the hockey beat, but so far so good for the Gloucester boys hockey. Other news around the Cape Ann, on the basketball scene, Rockport's off to one of their best starts in the past decade. They're just coming off a big win at Ipswich High last Friday night, which was a huge one for them. They hadn't beat Ipswich in about 10 years. They're off to a 5-2 start, which again is one of their best starts in recent memory. So the way they're playing, I think they have a chance to get into the tournament, which is a big deal for that program. Small team, small school, but they're playing some good hoop. Really like what Ed Mertz is doing over there, from coming over from the soccer field where they had a nice boys soccer season. He's playing some good ball. Phil Whitley, the head coach, his son Josiah is off to a good start. He's a lefty shooter, having a good season. So they got some nice pieces. Gloucester boys basketball is battling. They just picked up, I believe they just picked up another win after their first win over Danvers. So they got 2 on the board now. They're a young team. They're building their way towards something that they had a few years back, and even last year making it into the tournament. So I think there's going to be some bumps along the road for that program, but they're moving right along. And then Manchester Essex, the other boys team, I believe is still undefeated. So
6-0, yeah, Nick. I think they're 6-0, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the only undefeated teams in the state left. Obviously they're Division 4. They're going to really cause some problems in Division 4 with Cade First, the senior star there that's over 1,000 career points now, and then they got the big man Eddie Herreas, 6'6" guy. Just don't see a lot of big guys like that in the Cape Ann League. So he's been having his way and posing troubles for other opponents. So 6-0 start for them. That's impressive stuff as well. And they're coming off a big win over their rival Georgetown at Georgetown last Friday night. So that's kind of the boys scene right now. The wrestling program, obviously, at Gloucester is having a great season. We could look at some of the girls' sports. I think Gloucester girls basketball is really making some strides. They've had a couple nice wins and some competitive losses. Manchester Essex girls hoop is battling. They're over 500 as well. And then the girls hockey, Willie, who was it that got the big win over Winthrop, the Gloucester girls, recently? And they're going to be having a rematch of that game coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, 7-2 the Gloucester girls are. So that's that's already tied their most wins last year, and they haven't made the state tournament since 2002. So 22 years now. They didn't have a team for 17 or 18 of those 22 years. So that's going way back to the Wayback Machine there. They came back for the 2021 season as their own program, and so this is the third season, and they've already tied for the most wins. I mean, in 2002 they had 9 wins, so they only need 2 more to have really the most wins in program history. So that's pretty good. A lot of seniors on that team playing really well. Tough one on Saturday at home against Beverly, a 5-4 loss, back and forth, back and forth. They got down 3-1, tied it up at 3, got down 4-3, tied it up at 3, and then Beverly got the game winner with only a minute and change left to play. So, they've proven, Gloucester, that they can play with everybody. Beating Winthrop, who's a 2-time defended champ, had a relatively close game with Peabody, and then now a relatively close game with Beverly. So I think, at this point, those 4 teams are kind of starting to separate themselves from the pack a little bit. And anytime that they play each other, there's going to be premium points, as they try to jockey for position at the top of the standings. So that's certainly a big one there. I mean, it's one thing to beat a team once. It's harder to sweep them. So, I mean, that would really be a big statement for Gloucester. I mean, if they can sweep Winthrop, and certainly that win over Winthrop should help them in the power rankings when they come out on Friday. I mean, Gloucester's a Division II team, I believe. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, in the top 16 or maybe even the top 10 of Division II.
Willie, let me follow up with you on girls hockey. Well, by the way, Nick, a nice transition to that. Peabody beat Winthrop over the holiday break, I believe, right? And now Peabody just barely beat Marblehead earlier in the week, 2-1. So is there a lot of parity at the top of the Northeastern, of not the Northeastern Conference, but of the hockey league?
Well, I think that's hockey, right? I mean, I think we've seen, with St. John's Prep Boys hockey, right? They'll go out and outshoot a team by 20 or 30, and they win the game by a goal or two, right? I mean, if you have a good goaltender, and Marblehead's girls certainly do it in Scarlett Lee, and the teams can kind of keep the games close, right? I mean, I think sometimes in hockey the scores don't, it's not football, right? Like the good teams don't always win by 4 or 5 touchdowns. You can have close games, and certainly Marblehead's a young team, only one senior, but played well. And the thing with Peabody and Winthrop, I think, fits into this boat too, is that these are deep teams, right? I mean, Peabody has a lot of really good players. I'm not sure they have any great ones. In other words, I'm not sure they have like a go-to scorer. They don't really have a David Pasternak. Their scoring is very spread out. And so sometimes you get in a close game and you just got to bang in that late goal. I mean, yeah, they've got, no players with 10 points, but they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players with at least 6 points, right? So I think, and Winthrop's kind of built in a similar fashion. Like, they're not built on a high scoring top line. And so, some days those goals are going to be hard to come by. And that was certainly the case on Saturday. But, I think that is kind of the game of hockey, right? Is that sometimes these games are close, and it's almost similar to soccer that way, and that's why we love it, because even teams with disparate records that have disparity, right? It's not always going to be like a one-sided game.
I want to jump to basketball. I think Phil, hopefully he'll be joining us soon. He'll want to, I'm sure, lend some expertise onto the hockey scene. Nick, I heard you're listening to Matt talk there about hockey and not comparing it to football touchdowns. I know you're a stranger to hockey. There are no touchdowns in hockey.
No touchdowns, huh?
I know you're going to learn that up in the Cape
know.
Ann areas, Cape Ann region soon here. But
no, I will say though, Talbot Rink is buzzing. I was over there for the Gloucester boys game. Great crowd over there against Newburyport, and obviously with the girls team playing so well too. Definitely a good take for any local hockey fans wanting to catch some good hockey over at Talbot Rink in Gloucester.
And I will say, I love the double headers. I wish more schools did that.
Yeah.
That's something Gloucester's really mastered that I think other schools could learn from.
Absolutely. Good point. And the other thing I just want to follow on as we jump to boys basketball, you mentioned Manchester Essex boys. I think that's a team that fans want to see this year. You got to go check that team out. This is a team that beat Peabody for their one loss this year. Peabody.
Handily.
And by about 30 points too. It was convincing. Yeah, they got a great team. I mean, just play team defense. They offensively, they go through their 2 studs who I mentioned, First and Haraeus. I've been very impressed with him. First is a kid that was getting offers to go other places, but decided to stay and ride out his senior year with his boys from home on the home team, and it's paying off so far. I think they're going to be a force in Division 4.
I saw Peabody coach Thad Broughton last night over in Marblehead. I asked him about that game, and he said, "Well, they played a close game last year, the two teams.
They did,
He was hoping to win, as you would probably know from last year, Nick, but which I'd forgotten. But he did say they didn't play well, but he did not take anything away from Manchester Essex. So they're a very good team, very talented players. They got just as I said, just the one loss. So this was the game last night where they played just about 5 minutes of the game, 3 minutes and 8 seconds remaining in the first quarter. They had to call it because of a wet floor, a roof leak in Marblehead last night. They'll resume tonight. But I guess, game was playing off just as you might expect. Marblehead Bigs getting the scoring points. They're 11 points in the first quarter there. Peabody hitting from the outside with some threes, but also with some jump shots. They led 13-11 at that point in the first quarter when the game was called or suspended, if you will. And one of Peabody's, they had a 3-point attempt in the right corner against Marblehead. The player got fouled, went to the line, hit 3 straight free throws. So just a great start to a basketball game last night, but it had to be halted. But it'll be resuming tonight, as I'm sure we'll post on Tuesday afternoon here. But Matt, I know you've been out at some boys games, but let's get the big picture on boys basketball. Nick touched on a couple of things here, but I see Masco boys winning Monday night against Salem, so they're doing some nice things.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, Beverly kind of coming off the mat a little bit, right? They beat Danvers, they beat Masco. Obviously, when they play Salem, I think a week. We can talk about that next week. I think it's a week from Friday. That's a huge game. Peabody and Marblehead is a huge game. It's going to be a race. I mean, Peabody boys have never won an NEC basketball title, right? And here they are battling Marblehead. The winner of that game will be in first place. And I'm sure that again, just like we said with the girls hockey, the second matchups between Peabody Salem, Peabody Beverly. These are going to be big games that decide the standings, and all of a sudden you got to respect Masco. You can't overlook them. They got some talent and some size, so it's going to be a race. It's certainly going to be fun to watch. The crazy thing about Salem is the freshmen, right? I mean, against Peabody on Friday night, all their first 40 points were all scored by freshmen. And they scored 42, I think, or 49. All but 2 of them were by the freshmen. So they only had 3 guys score, and they had a kid with 25, Maxon, a kid with 22, Rodriguez, and then a senior made 2 free throws late in the fourth quarter. So that's not something you expect, certainly for Salem, to be carried by these 2 kids. But I mean, my goodness, if they stay together, how dangerous are they going to be 2 or 3 years from now? I mean, they're pretty good now, but when these kids are mature and going after 1,000, 1,500 points, if they stay together, they could be really, really good, because they're both really, really good. They pass the ball to each other very well. Rodriguez shoots from 3 very, very well. I think he made 4 threes in the second half. And Maxon can get to the hoop already. I mean, he's already, as Nick can tell you, he played for Salem Academy as a middle schooler, so he's certainly not getting sped up by the varsity game, and he can just get to the cup with the best of them. I mean, he's got a quick first step, and he's certainly much stronger physically than you'd expect, for a 9th grader.
And he hits his free throws. He gets to the line, he hits them. So I just want to add something on the basketball front. I'm still going to be tapped into the North Shore basketball scene, as much as possible here with the transition to the Cape Ann, and I'm going to be keeping the stats still for all our guys, both on the North Shore and in the Cape Ann, the basketball stat leaders. And it's a good time to plug our new column. We're going to be running a boys and girls combined basketball column every Friday during the winter season called Above the Rim. And we'll do a, football Friday, thing on the rail. What do we call it? A strip down the left side of the page with some, the stat leaders and some games to watch and notes and things of that sort. So, we're going to be combining, rotating that column throughout the winter, and you'll see stuff in the Gloucester Times on Rockport, Manchester, Essex, and Gloucester, and you'll see the North Shore stuff in the Salem News. So we'll be tag teaming that, and excited to keep the hoops thing going here.
We should
Can I just mention, Matt, that again, Salem, but back to boys basketball or continuing with boys basketball, Salem and Marblehead play Sunday at the Garden. I believe that's a 2:30 tip off. So just a quick note on
2:30,
that.
yep.
I'll look ahead to this weekend. Matt, I'm sorry, go ahead. And Phil
I was gonna
Stacy
say-
has joined us, and we'll get to some hockey in a moment here. Yeah.
I was gonna say we should talk about the girls. I mean, we'll post this on Tuesday afternoon. The huge girls game on Tuesday night. You got Bishop Fenwick and St. Mary's, the rivals, playing each other. And St. Mary's had their first loss, I think, on Friday against Cathedral. And Fenwick's only lost thus far is to Fian. I think Fian, Fenwick, and St. Mary's are all in the top 10 in the state, or at least in Eastern Mass in the Boston papers. So just a huge game. I mean, it's always a great game, but I think even more emphasis this year for Fenwick because you can't win the state title. The only thing you can win is the CCL, right? And so if St. Mary's takes that away from you again, I just think there's a little bit more motivation for them. Not that there isn't always motivation, and it's always a great game, great rivalry, all that. I don't think Fenwick's beaten them in about 6 years. So just that's about as good a game as you're going to get, not just on the North Shore, but in the state for girls basketball between those two.
And you mentioned the rankings in the Boston papers. We should note that the first MIA power rankings are coming out this Friday, so keep an eye out for those.
All right, Phil, I know you've been to some basketball games, but I think I've done an outstanding job with time management here in this podcast so far. So we've left plenty of time for some boys high school hockey. We've talked about girls hockey, girls. We actually haven't done too much girls basketball. Maybe we should just quickly. Did we do? Yeah, we really haven't done much of that. I'm sorry, but
just the game that
still
really highlighted, yeah.
Yeah, Peabody's still undefeated, and I did see them versus Swampscott last week, and you just mentioned the big game coming up tonight. So, Phil, let's go to. If you may want to weigh in on basketball now too, with the shuffling that we talked about.
I went and I saw
Cape Ann
Salem and Masco play last night, and
yeah.
Those two Salem freshmen are, I came in when you were talking about it, but as advertised, I'm actually going to write about them for the column that Nick mentioned later this week. We'll lead with talking about. I talked to both of those young men, both really nice kids, clearly strong playmakers, and Masconomet, who won the game, had some great younger players too. Started 3 sophomores, have 5 who played, all contributed. Jameson Vela, big sophomore with a nice touch, had a game high. I want to say he had 23 points last night. Really effective in the paint, canned a 3-pointer, hit his free throws. So Steve Hines is doing some nice things at Masco. And I am going to Fenwick St. Mary's tonight for the girls' game, so I'm looking forward to that. Seeing our friends, Mr. DeBadgis and Mr. Newhall, and then seeing them pit teams against each other should be a good take. But yes, hockey is probably where I have the most knowledge, so I'm happy to answer any of your questions there.
All right. Well, this is working out incredibly well. Again, time-wise, who knows how else it's working out. But Phil, let's begin with boys hockey. What do we know from this past week or last couple of weeks? Things are coming together, and give us some updates.
Yeah, so we're getting near the midway point of the season here. And in the conference, right now it's defending champion Winthrop, which is kind of leading the pack. Reigning MVP Petey Silverman is off to another great start this season. I should say leading a very strong offensive team. Not much changes in Winthrop. They usually have a lot of depth, toughness, the commitment to their own end. They usually have an excellent goaltender. All those things seem to be in place again this year. I have not seen Winthrop in person yet this year, but I obviously follow their scores and how they do online and whatnot. Big game with Gloucester this Wednesday. Fishermen go down to Larson Rink to catch that. Was it Nick 6:10? I want to say.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Larson obviously one of the tougher places in the league to play, especially.
Wait a minute, Phil. Look how far we've come, Nick. Phil asking Nick, what time does the Gloucester hockey game start? I love it.
Yeah,
this is
6:10,
unbelievable
baby.
Stuff here. Yeah, Phil. 6:10. You got it, buddy. Yeah,
Nick. When Nick did was it Newburyport against Gloucester recently?
Yeah.
And Nick texts me from the rink. He's like, "Wow, it's cold here." Like, yeah, well, it's not a gym. That's true.
Little adjustment there for sure.
But he did great. You know, he did a great job with his game story and questioning. When I saw Gloucester Saturday, I said, Derek Geary, the head coach, I'm like, how'd Nick do? He's like, he was great. I'm like, he says,
Yeah, he's a
yeah,
pro.
he
He's
was.
been
So
at this a while.
Yeah,
it
good
worked
enough.
out good. But yeah, Gloucester's got a big game. I mean, Gloucester's coming off of a loss to Masconomet. You know, Masconomet's going great guns too. They're 7-2. They were upset by Danvers in their season opener, but they've won 7 out of 8 since then, and they're just have the one loss in conference play. So right now you kind of have Winthrop, Masco, and Gloucester all kind of at the top of the league right now, and everybody else fighting for pecking order within there. You have Danvers, which is a couple games over 500, 4-2-1. Beverly is playing better. They're over 500. Great for them to see. They haven't won a playoff game. I wrote this a couple weeks ago. They have not won a playoff game since they won the state title in 2014. They've only played 2 playoff games since then. So the Panthers are really hoping to get back into the tournament this year. And of course, that starts with strong play during the regular season, which they're getting so far. Some really nice goaltending from PJ Redmond, some spread out scoring. Bobby Massa, Ethan Height really doing a nice job as the senior leaders and captains of that team. Swampscott has lost 2 straight, but they were our last undefeated team. They were undefeated through 5 games. Got to find a way to persevere a little bit. Youngish team. They do have some senior veterans, but a youngish team that doesn't have a lot of depth. They basically skate 2 lines and play 4 defensemen. So guys are literally going out every other shift, and they need to be in great shape to do that. They do have a strong goalie in Dom Papalato, which is helping out there. Marblehead just trying to find its footing. Those poor guys. They lost their first 6 games of the year. 5 of those by 1 goal. I mean, heartbreaking fashion for these guys. They win 2 in a row. They battle Marblehead pretty tough. I'm sorry, they battle Winthrop pretty tough at Salem State last Saturday, but they ultimately lose 3-1. So they're 2-7. Are they a 2-7 team? No, they got a lot of talent over there, but they got to start winning some games here. I mean, it's pretty clear. Even with a 22 game schedule that they're playing, 9 games in, that doesn't give you a lot of leeway to turn the corner a little bit here. I mean, if you go 10-3 the rest of the way, that's only a 12-10 record, and that gets you in the tournament, but that's asking a lot. So they got to find a way to start changing the momentum here, getting some wins. St. John's Prep, hot as any team in the state right now, lost their opener to Hingham. They've won 6 straight. Kind of a brutal stretch for them coming up. They have 4 Catholic Conference games all on the road, starting with Xaverian down at Canton on Wednesday. They go to Catholic Memorial on Sunday. I think after that, they are back at, they're playing St. John's Shrewsbury out in Marlborough. And then they go back to Canton to play BC High a week from Sunday. So pretty brutal stretch for them, but it's what you sign up for. It's the league they play in. They know the deal, and they thrive on it. So how they'll come out of that, we shall see. AJ Farisi's been playing great. He had 3 straight shutouts and almost another one the other night in beating Malden Catholic. Gave up 1 late goal on the power play. Bishop Fenwick had a couple of wins after a rough start. They've since fallen back a little bit. Again, tough schedule. They're going up against Archie's the other night, and they got hammered. Archbishop Williams, I think, is one of the best teams in the state. So you hope Fenwick learns from that. A lot of young players on their roster, again, with some seniors. They're looking to just improve all the time under new head coach Brian Churches. What else? Essex Tech doing their deal in the Cape Ann League. They've kind of turned things around after an 0-2 start. They're now 4-3-1, I want to say. And they play up at Pentucket, which is certainly a winnable game on Wednesday night. So I think that's it.
Yeah, you answered you were going there, and I'm thinking, let's get an update from Phil on the Prep and on Essex Tech having joined the Cape Ann League, and you nailed it right there. So
I should mention too,
I'm out of questions.
weekend. Nice weekend for Pingree this past weekend. They hosted a game where they raised money for one of their alumni, Thomas D. Smith Foundation for athletes who've suffered paralysis while playing. I know they raised a bunch of money, got a great crowd for both the girls and boys game against Kents Hill the other day. And more importantly, they came out of it with a pair of wins. So congratulations to the Highlanders, not only for the wins, but also for raising money for a great cause. And Tommy's a good guy, a real good guy. And I'm glad that they were able to help his foundation.
All right,
Bill,
guys.
just I want to jump back real quick on the charity front here. you mentioned the Salem Marblehead game at the Garden next Sunday. That is going to be the Andrew Lawson Foundation Invitational, and it's been going on for 10 years now. Steve Gibbs, the boys coach over at Pingree, has organized it, done a great job. They really try and get some rivalry games to be hosted in the Garden. You look at Salem Marblehead, that's a nice conference rivalry. A lot of the games played there are going to be from schools that know each other very well and would otherwise probably play each other in a regular season game outside of the Garden. But good thing to get them in there. And, to kick the day off, they're going to do a bunch of unified sports basketball games on the court as well, and that's for
great.
Kids
Awesome.
with disabilities and that might not otherwise get the chance to play basketball, let alone play it on the TD Garden parquet. So pretty cool event.
That's awesome.
They're going to be doing those unified games early in the morning to start, and then jump right into the high school tilts.
Yeah, that's a great note. Thank you, Nick, because I saw something on that from him last week on the games coming up. So that's perfect. That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, we've gone like 30 minutes. We haven't even talked about Bill Belichick. I've been out of touch this morning. Any news on Bill Belichick as we talk on Tuesday afternoon? What are you guys thinking?
I mean, I've kind of felt all along.
We talked 2 weeks ago and nothing's really changed or more, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I felt all along that Kraft was going to have a hard time pulling the plug. I don't think his son would.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
I think there's so much history there. There's such a connection. But having said that, I mean, how do you keep running back the same thing again when this clearly is not working? It's a mess. I mean, there would have to be some huge concessions made by Belichick. You need a GM. You probably need another offensive coordinator.
Yes.
You need some help when you draft an offensive players. And is he willing to do that? Probably not. I mean, I kind of feel like the ball's in Belichick's corner. He's going to get paid one way or the other. And he's not going to quit. So he's going to make Kraft be the bad guy if that's what he chooses to do. So I don't know. Advantage Belichick from this corner.
It's just some of the reports too that are coming out. They're thinking about bringing back Josh McDaniels, and then Vrabel's name came out if he was to leave the Titans, which it doesn't look like they're gonna fire him. But yeah, they're trying to relive the glory days a little bit too much here, I think. And I don't know. I'm indifferent about the Belichick thing. I think it could still work if he stays, and that you surround some different people around him, and maybe pull the plug on some of his duties with the team. Not going to speculate what that might be, but it's interesting, especially that they haven't made the move yet. There's just rumors out there that Belichick is meeting with Kraft and they're discussing things in the future and whatever. So I don't know when we're gonna hear. It could happen today. It could happen 2 weeks from now. But it's an interesting place to be, going 4-13 and not really a lot of positives to look at this point.
I just think like if they don't do something, like they're just gonna have to do it next year. Like this is not gonna be a this is a teardown. Like this is not gonna be better like with a different coach or just a coordinator, I mean, I think we saw that this year. We thought, oh geez, Ramondre Stevenson's pretty good. The offense just needs better play calling, and they had better play calling, and in 6 of 16 games or 6 of 17 games, they didn't even score 10 points. So like, it's not the play calling, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. They're terrible, and you can't fix that with one draft class. Like, it's gonna take a while, and so you might as well start now, right? Like, what's the point of waiting? Let's say Belichick gets his groove back. What's the best case scenario next year? 6-11 instead of 4 like, who cares? Like, you just gotta, it's just time. I mean, Jaylen Warren, the backup running back for the Steelers, had more receptions this year than any Patriot, and he doesn't even play every down. You're not even talking about like a Breece Hall or an Austin Eckler or something like this. So that just goes to show you how broken the passing game is, right? Like, and that's not just play calling. That's the players. That's the the line not protecting, that's the receivers not being NFL quality. It's going to take a lot more than one draft class to fix this, in my opinion. And so the guy's 71. Even if he has a good draft this year and has a nice year coaching next year, the improvement's going to be marginal. Then he's going to be 72. It's like, even if he aces this draft, which is like probably a 50-50 proposition at best, he's not going to be around to cook the meal when it's ready. Like, because this is going to be a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild. You hope it's not going to be decades, right? A lot of these teams that fall to this level take that long, but especially on offense, you just look across the talent level, and I just think it's, this is not going to be an overnight fix.
You know what I'm thinking here? That Belichick is outstanding at X's and O's. He's the general manager. I think people question his player personnel moves, and I think that his player personnel moves have infected the chemistry of the team as well, because he's not GM, coach, deciding who plays and who, the roles of these players, opposed to working it out with another general manager, a player personnel guy, and the coach. It just seems to me like it's just been a very caustic or negative kind of vibe down there as far as that goes. And then on top of it, then you have that you got Bailey Zappi. Now, Mike Grenier had a nice tweet, I think, in the last week. He said, they're not going to win with Bailey Zappi. No matter what else happens, forget all this other stuff. Bailey Zappi's not going to take them through the playoffs. Come on, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, Mike's been on fire lately.
Yeah,
I mean, and I agree with that. That's, I don't know what to do here. And I think, Phil, when you let it off, you made as much sense as anything here, with analyzing the situation here. But, what's going to happen here? This is a multi-year fix, and whether Belichick's here next year or not, who cares, really? As far, you might as well keep
another great question. People keep talking about, like, which quarterback should they draft and all. Should they really draft Marvin Harrison Jr. instead? I mean, to Willie's point,
yes,
they have the worst wide receivers in football. I mean, there isn't anybody on that team who's above a wide receiver 3. You have a room full of wide receiver 4 and 5s on this team. Maybe Demario Douglas could be a guy, but he's not a 1. He's a complementary piece, but you need a stud. And I don't know. I mean, is drafting the next quarterback going to be worth it if you don't have any pieces to give him? I don't know. I just don't know. It's a tough question.
Mac Jones would still be quarterbacking this team if they had receivers.
Possibly.
I believe that.
Quite possibly.
probably.
It's broken. And I think what you found is that this whole Patriot way, like, professional athletes, when they lose, things turn bad. It doesn't matter if you have a sign on the wall that says ignore the noise, or if you at the press conference, like, guys, they're men, and it turns out they'll do anything to win. And when you start losing, they start side-eyeing you, and you have culture problems. And that's professional sports in a nutshell, right? Like, it's not the Flying Elvis logo that makes everything magic. It's the winning. And as soon as you start losing, turns out you got the same problems as everybody else, and your owner and your coach and your logo can't fix it. I don't know about Harrison, because I don't know about these quarterbacks. Like, if the quarterback's good, I think you take the quarterback, but I don't watch college football that much. Like, I have no idea if they're good, because I just think, like, you can find really good receivers late in the draft, right? I mean, Deebo Samuel was a 2nd round pick. I think Justin Jefferson went in the 20s. I mean, I guess Jamari Chase was a top 5 pick, but Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh was a mid-round pick. Tyreek Hill was a 2nd or 4th rounder or something. Maybe, there were reasons beyond the talent why he went that low, but Devontae Adams, I don't think was a top number 1 pick, right? So maybe if you trust your scouts to find these guys later, I think there's more of them available, right? But the question is, are you going to get new scouts? Because obviously the Patriots' track record on those guys is not great, right? So you're kind of up against the wall no matter what, right? Like, but they need to get a lot of really good players really fast, and the offensive line still stinks. So I mean, you can make an argument that they should take the left tackle.
Yeah. I got some breaking news too. I just mentioned Mike Vrabel a couple minutes ago, and he is out. He got fired.
Okay.
So
All right, there you
he's
go.
out in Tennessee. I don't know. Maybe that's a name to keep an eye on.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we might as well wrap it up here. But gentlemen, some good stuff here. And your last thought on the Patriots here. I see we have 1 minute here. Is that great teams, championship teams? Don't they all have great quarterbacks?
Yes.
I mean,
For the
don't
most
they all
part.
have great quarterbacks?
Very
I mean,
rare exceptions, yeah.
Right.
yeah, and I get the idea of but maybe they won't get their quarterback till next year, but they got to get a good draft choice. But I don't know what I kind of think they have to go after a quarterback, and then whatever. But in this draft at number 3. All right, gentlemen, great talking with you, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks, Bill.